Hello, it's Olivia here. Welcome back to another video. As you guys already know that I has been taking time off from YouTube and I just got back to posting video a little while ago. I know a lot of you want me to post more color along video and those will come out soon. But in the meantime, this is a collaboration with Arrtx or Arrtx. I think that's what they call. They actually reached out to me and asked if I wanted to try out their new acrylic marker set. So of course I said yes. So I have here with me the 60A color set, which is called anime colors. There is another set called 60B standard color as well, I believe. The set comes with both circle and rectangular label numbers sticker that you can put on yourself. When I tried to put on the little circle stickers for the bottom of the markers, it actually quite difficult because these are really small sticker and I guess I just have really big fingers. So I recommend using the graph tweezer to pick out the sticker if you have one, because that's make a whole lot easier for me. Another things with these stickers, the numbers on them are quite hard to see, especially the lighter colors like the yellow and the light pink. This is because all the numbers on these stickers are printed with white ink, so there is no contrast between the actual number and the lighter color base. I think this would easily get fixed if they just use black ink for the numbers instead of white for the lighter markers. However, I don't have any problem seeing the numbers on these bigger label stickers as the numbers are printed on quite nice and big. I don't have any issue putting on the sticker and they actually stay on quite well initially, but I found that they tend to peel back a little after the markers sitting out for a while. That said, I only have these markers for over a week, so I'm very curious to see how well this sticker will stay on in a long run. The last thing I want to say about these stickers are they quite fiddly and they do take me personally a little long to put on individual marker, but once they're done they do look really nice and polished. As the same with any other new medium, when I get them, I always like to swatch the colors out just to see what the actual color look like, because the colors itself on the markers are quite different sometimes with how it look like on actual paper. So I always recommend you swatch out your colors. These colors are really nice and I love the vibrancies of the colors. The opacities is also quite nice. I like that they don't bleed or bloom around the paper as much as the normal alcohol markers. And the one best thing about these acrylic markers, they do not bleed through the back of the paper at all. So I was really excited to see how they would work in coloring book, and I will show you that in a little bit. But overall, beautiful colors, and I do think they have really nice range of the colors here, although most of them I would say lean a bit toward the pastel cooler shade, which I don't mind at all, but I really hope that they would include a few more warmer tone shade. This box of the marker doesn't come with any of the swatch paper, so I decided to do all my colors on a separate piece of paper because I intended to keep this marker in their box. So I wanted to have something fit perfectly in the box so I can look at the colors whenever I use them without having to take out my swatch book. Arrtx also sent me their new sketchbook, which I think has a really neat design. I never seen this design on any other sketchbook before, not the one I own anyway, but they only glue one side of the binders and keep the other side open so the whole book will stay flat flat when you drawing or sketching, which I think is super helpful. And I think the quality of this sketchbook is really nice. The papers are so thick, so I decided to use the sketchbook first to test out some of the technique that I want to do with the acrylic marker, because I just want to get a feel of how these marker work before I go in with my coloring book. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to try out is do some glue, because I tend to use acrylic paint for glues in my coloring books, and I thought since these are acrylic marker, I wonder how they work and would they also work well with the technique that I usually use. The markers itself, when I test it out on my swatch, they are really nice and choosy and they almost look perfect. But I think if you do in a bigger space, like the sweater I'm doing here, it's actually not that big, but you can see that even though I do really fast at the beginning, it still leave a lot of streaky mark. I don't mind it because I don't think I'm really gonna use this pen in that big of a space, because it's kind of a waste. If I'm going to use acrylic, then I'll just use acrylic paint. However, I did test out a few different techniques. I'm using the water brush pen to blend out the ink itself, and I think they work really well, although they dry so fast. So here I decided to do another glue because I was quite understand how they sort of work in the first sketch that I did. So for the second one, I actually go in straight away with my water brush pen and do really light at the beginning. I think it's worked really well when you do light swatches. And I think if you have a thicker types of coloring book like John Hannah Basford's, Hannah Calzone, those kind of books, it would work really well with this technique. I would definitely do a different video in the future, maybe when we actually color in a complete page where I actually use this technique in those coloring books to see if the technique actually hold up well. But I was genuinely surprised with how well the method worked. The color blend really nicely together, and I was able to do a really nice and soft looking glue. It does really give off an acrylic painting look, which I quite love. And you don't have to keep mixing new colors. The white is also really nice and opaque, so I think you can definitely use it to cover the black line art in your coloring book. For the second test, I wanted to incorporate some of the color pencil on top of the acrylic marker base. I used the Polychromos pencil and a white Prismacolor. I think they show up really nicely on top of the acrylic base, and it doesn't scratch off the marker base at all, which is going to be helpful later on when I do a similar technique in coloring book. I also decided to do some mossy rocks or stone because I wanted to test out if I can do a really nice look of the moss on the top of this rock or stone with this acrylic marker and make them look a bit 3D painting style. I actually always do some sort of like mossy texture in my coloring book with the Posca pen and sometimes water-based marker, but I really wanted to try out with this one to see if it's give a different look or like the same. I was genuinely surprised as how well my color pencil texture showed through with this sketchbook paper that I end up loving the rock stone combination so much that I wanted to include all the color names that I use for these rock combinations, so you can use it in your own coloring as well. I use Polychromos pencil, by the way. I also really love the white that the mossy texture turning out with this acrylic marker pen. I didn't really have to use a lot of crazy technique with it. I'll just layering all these colors on top. So I do a dark color underneath, and then I do like a lighter green on top, and then a lighter yellow on the top, and a couple of other colors for the flowers. It really gave off Ghibli studio style when they do nature in their animations, and I honestly really love their style, so that's a win. Also, to my surprise, even though with a thick layer of paint underneath, I was still able to add in more detail with my color pencil on top. As you know, with a lot of acrylic brands, sometimes when you build up too much layer on top, it can become quite glossy. So these markers are definitely have that matte finish. I also want to test out to see how opaque this marker can be, especially with the lighter color on top of a really dark base. I want to see if there is any shadow showing through. So I decided to do the Susu Watari or Soot Sprites from Spirited Away because they have a really dark body and white eyes. Initially, the white marker go on top quite opaque, but after a while I can see a slight shadow showing through the white. However, I don't think it's going to be a big issue at all. For the final test, I wanted to do a little piece of completely with these markers, so there's no pencil go on top or anything like that. I wanted to see if I can truly create something with just using this marker, because I am a color pencil girl through and through. So I wanted to go out of my comfort zone, and I decided to do a few lily pad. I actually saw someone do this kind of style of bubble looking leaves from TikTok, but I can't really remember who. So if you know or you recognize their style, please let me know in the comments so I can credit them. Anyway, I really like how this lily pad turns out. If I'm going to do this again in the future, I would probably do a few of the underneath one. It's a bit darker color combination. I just couldn't find any other darker green in this acrylic set, so I would definitely get another set if they come out with a darker version, because this set, like I mentioned earlier, that most of the color is quite light. I think it would be really fun to try and using only this marker with maybe minimum color pencil in a coloring page to see how well it would turn out. Anyway, here is a full page of everything I did using a few techniques with these markers, and I am feeling a lot more comfortable using them now. So I just want to show you the back of the sketchbook first, and there is nothing bleeding through at all. I'm using A Million Sweet Things by Lulu Mayo to test out how this marker actually work in coloring book. And I choose this book because her paper is not like the best papers out there. So if it's work in this book, it would work in any other nicer coloring book like John Hannah Basford's and Hannah Calzone's and Kirby Rose and things like that. And as you can see that when I make a mistake earlier, well, it wasn't a mistake, but I didn't really like how the colors look. I just go right on top with another color. It's covered up so well. As long as you kind of wait for the previous layer to dry completely before you go on top with another color. The marker themselves are quite juicy, so I would highly recommend you to wait about 30 seconds or a minute before you move on to another area or before you want to cover up the previous area. This is all depends on how big or small your area that you're working on is. And for the coloring method that I'm using here, if you are someone using a lot of alcohol markers, you probably know about this method where you apply like a flat base of markers down and then you go on top to shade with your color pencil. So that is exactly what I'm doing here. Generally, I always do a light color or a middle shade color, depends on what color combo I'm doing for the base color using the markers. So if you are used to use normal alcohol marker before, then you would just apply the same technique with the acrylic marker. The good thing about these acrylic markers are they do not bleed through, which I will show you in the end, the back of the page. And as I mentioned earlier, that this book doesn't have the best kind of paper out there, so if this book doesn't bleed through, then it should work the same with other better coloring books. Another thing I quite like about these markers are their brush nib. I can use them to cover large area as well as do smaller detail. I'm showing you here in this little mirror illustration that I'm doing. I wanted to do like a little flowers, things and with leaves inside of it, so I'm using this marker as a base. So at the moment I'm just using the two color green, one is dark and one is light, because I want to have the darker leaves at the background, at the further background, and then the lighter color leaves is as like closer distance. And I will add in a darker background overall later on with my color pencil to bring out all the details. And I also want to show you how to do the hydrangeas. Very simple hydrangea that you can do in your coloring books as well if you end up getting this same set. I'm using the slightly darker blue and slightly darker pink and slightly darker purple for the base of the hydrangea first. And I will go on top with the lighter color using the same markers but with like a lighter shade to create the flower detail. So when you do the little ball of flower, just the shape of the flowers, try not to do perfect circle. Just imagine that you are adding in like little pom-poms. Now with a lighter marker, I'm gonna adding in very simple shape of little flowers, and this is what I mean when I say I can do really small detail with this marker. As you can see here, we just do some flowers and some single petal shape by pressing the marker just ever so slightly down. Because of the shape of the tip, you would able to do the petal shape without using any technique. You just need to press it very so slightly. So I'm using light pink, light blue and light purple for the flowers. You can use white as well if you have like a bigger areas, so you can incorporate in some white flowers on top of the light color flower to create dimension and depth. But however, I don't have much room in these little tiny mirrors, so I'll just do a very simple way. Then I go in with normal color pencil, I'll just do some dark colors for the center of the flower, for the one that we do like a full shape flowers, not the petal ones. I will just use a white gel pen on top, adding in a few little dots and a lot of little dots around the edge of each flower to create the wet sparkle look of hydrangea after the rain. For the background, I'm just using a lot of dark green and even some brown as well. I think it was a dark sepia that I used to add it in more depth and dimension for the leaves, so it just doesn't look like the flower kind of floating around and all the leaves not look like it just kind of in space. So what I'm doing, I just go between the leaves and colors the space in. Another thing I forgot to mention that is for this review video, I only use mostly Polychromos pencil to do the test, because I know that Prismacolors are very forgiving and very easy pencil to use. They're quite buttery, so generally they kind of go on top of all surface, but Polychromos is a lot pickier and I mainly use Polychromos, so I thought if I can do Polychromos with all the technique that I'm using, then you can definitely do it with Prismacolor. And when you're using this marker for your coloring pages, I would highly recommend you go back in with the pencil definitely. Even maybe you are not big fan of color pencil, I feel like this marker, because they are so bright and they're so opaque, they're very flat looking. So if you want something just fun and filling in quickly, that's fine. But if you want your page to look a bit more dimensional and more depth to it, then you would need to add some highlight and shadow. So I would always recommend to go back in with some pencil, not need to be much. You can see in here I do very minimal shadowing and highlighting with the pencil, but a little bit of it will help a lot. While you're enjoying the coloring process, I just wanted to talk a bit more about the Arrtx and where you can get these lovely markers from. So you can get these markers pretty much anywhere on Amazon. I have a look and they are Amazon US, Amazon Canada, UK, Europe, and you can even get these markers on AliExpress as well, as the store on there are selling globally. So I would assume that you can get them to ship anywhere in the world. I think these markers are quite nice for the quality that they have to offer. They are selling in Australia for about $58, and for a set of 60 colors, that's pretty much like under $1 a marker. I think if you can't afford Posca pen, this one work great. I think even some of them is better than Posca pen, because Posca pen I can't really find lighter colors like pastel colors, but these they come with a range of different colors. I do wish that they do add more colors in the future, some darker colors perhaps, some warmer tone, more earthy tone perhaps, because those are the colors that I think would be really useful if you're going to do a whole page with just these markers. But it's understandable that at the end of the day you can only fit so much of colors into a set. However, I know Arrtx do gouache, the jelly gouache paint, and I have eyeing this gouache paint for a while, and I know that do quite a bit of the colors available in the wash set, so finger crossed that they will able to bring out more colors with this marker. I think that's really nice. You don't have to activate them like the traditional method that you would do with the Pastel or the acrylic marker. I found that the problem with those acrylic markers sometimes after a while the paints will dry up and block the tip of the marker, so I wanted to see how well this paint will hold up in the future after a long time usage. But overall I'm quite happy with them. I hope that when they bring out more colors, more darker colors in the future, we can buy it in a separate set, so we don't have to get like a whole set with the same colors again. And it would be great if we can get them individual as well, because to me, and I know a lot of you guys would probably, for coloring artists, I guess we use a lot of white. Like I mentioned earlier, the white in this set is quite nice. You can probably cover the art light with it, and you can go on top with normal color pencil to create that painting look that you usually see that I use without having to cover everything with acrylic paint. And you also don't have to go through the trouble of carefully adding in the pencil because you was worried about scratching off the Posca pen. I know a lot of people use Posca pen, but you gotta be really careful with it. Posca pens are good for many things, but not definitely for covering up black line art. And I also think that the recipe that they use to create these markers, even though they are acrylic paint as well, they quite different from normal Posca pen or other marker pens that I have used before. So definitely is a step up or a completely different medium in general. Anyway, that is the page, a few one that I do, and there's nothing bleed through the back of this paper at all. I actually went back after I turned off the camera and do a few more things in the book because I really like the way the markers work. Overall, I really enjoy making this video, so I hope you guys like it too, and let me know what you think in the comment. Thank you Arrtx again for sending me this beautiful marker set, and I will see you guys again soon in the future videos. In the meantime, take care and happy coloring. Bye!